To say that geography is significant for civil services examination, both mains and prelims, will be an understatement. Largely because this is one of those subjects that has determined the trend of the questions, the filling of the questions, the contemporary nature of it, the diversity added to it, and the various appendages that it goes on to have in the form of ecology, disaster management, international relations, Indian economy, world economy, space technology, science and technology as well. It has its imprint in almost all of them. So, to say that questions are going to be asked in geography and that there is a trend, that will also going to be an understatement and overstatement, both of it. Because trend, as the students going to understand it, is nothing but a manifestation of the insecurity. UPSC doesn't going to follow any such type of a trend at all. It's only that the students going to decipher these things themselves, and they decipher it largely because they're going to feel insecure about a lot of things. Now, there is no way, there is no such type of a pattern that the civil services examiners will go on to ask a number of questions in one of these topics, and that the number of questions will go on to fluctuate or change in a definite manner, in another manner, either decreasing way or an increasing way. It's not at all so. It's also not so that once the questions are going to be asked from the physical geography section, next year will be resource, next year will be agriculture, next year will be, it's also not like that. And it's also not like that there will be questions which can be correlative in one year, factual in another year, and so on and so forth. It's also not that way as well. Nevertheless, we'll always go on to try to find out some type of pattern, not exactly that there is a pattern, but some type of a pattern which will be helpful for the purpose of your studies. All in all, that is, how is it that you can go to ease your effort in both prelims examination as well as in mains examination, and how is it that you can go to explore the nature of geography for the purpose of easing your preparation, and how is it that you can also go on to use the nature and diversity of the topic to take advantage in other topics as well, other subjects as well. Now, we're going to begin this session by assuming that you have a fair amount of an idea about the syllabus. That's one. Now, this is something that you must have studied, and we assume it to be so because at this level, to talk about that this is what is in the syllabus, this is what is in the syllabus, is too childish for any civil services aspirants. And if it is that these things are going to be talked about, then you have to question your maturity level, whether you are fit enough for this purpose or not. Of course, this is not a class. You require it, you require to know that, but then this is not exactly the class for that purpose. So that is going to be one of those inbuilt assumptions in this case. The second is, of course, you may be having a fair, it's not a very good amount of an idea, a fair idea about how is it that the questions in general has been asked in different sections of geography, in different parts of it, or in general, the nature of questions that have been asked all the way from physical geography to disaster management or to environment. The third is that you will be having a fair amount of an idea about all your basics, and that you must have strengthened your basics by now. What we are going to say is that you must have strengthened your basics. That means that by now you would have studied your school books, and I am talking about school books. I am not only talking about NCERT, but I am talking about school books. All your school books, because school books have to be studied for a variety of reasons, and one of the reasons is that it goes on to help you fill in all your gaps in the preparation, and the greater are the gaps that have been filled up in your preparation, the better are you placed with respect to a lot of things. That is going to be number one. Second is that these basics go on to form the basic building block of your preparation. If you don't have your basics, then you won't be able to understand anything that is going to be talked about at the civil services level. And of course, you can go to make yourself a fool, and fool means a high quality fool. PHOOL, not FUFOOL. that fool is going to be for much better quality, and who go on to get themselves fooled by getting themselves fooled in every place and in variety of ways. They must be given some type of a reward for these things also. And we are completely convinced on that count. So if you are in a position to make yourself a fool, you will go on to study NCERT books in all of those places. And that is what you are going to be doing in general. That is another assumption. And the last assumption is that, of course, you are going to be one of those persons who are going to be sincere enough in this case. Now, we'll also go on to let you know that this section that is going to be talked about, that is Union Public Service Commission GS Mains, that's not about prelims, then that is going to be comprising of two other sections as well, which happen to be forming its appendage, which happens to be forming some component of it. One of them is going to be environment, the second is going to be disaster management. Now, these topics cannot be separated away from it. Although geography in general per se is going to be part of your first paper, while environment and disaster management go on to be part of your second paper. Now, having said that, the entire section, of today's discussion will go on to centered around approaching the topic from a variety of angles. And one of the angles from which it is going to be approached or is going to be approachable is going to be from the angle of a coach. Second is going to be from a trainer's perspective. The third is the teacher's perspective, and the fourth is a mentor's perspective. And there is a difference. A coach is the one that will go on to train maybe 300, 400, 500 people all the way throughout. Doesn't go on to consider any type of a difference in the intelligence level of the students, the insight of the students, the language of the students, the grasping level of the students, the curiosity level of the students. For coach, everyone is the same, and that everyone has to be taught exactly in the same manner. Whether it is going to be a productive aspect or not, that is a debatable part, and one can go on to understand it to what extent it can go on to be ever productive, but then that is not our topic right now. The second is going to be from a trainer's perspective. A trainer is one that will go to make you practice certain things in one way, another way, and he will going to make you keep on making you practice, so that you do go on to become perfect of sorts. Perfect means perfect in what? Perfect in your mistakes as well if the training is on the wrong side. And this is something that the students don't go to realize. And why is it that we're going to say that the students don't go to realize? We say that the students don't go to realize it because it is a common adage. Don't practice till you are perfect. And practice so much that you become perfect. What most of the students going to do is that initially, even if they don't go to know anything, they start practicing it. And that is really, really fatal. So that's the second way. The third way is going to be that of a teacher. A teacher is the one who goes on to pick up a chapter and then goes on to explain you the chapter. That's the basic nature of the teacher. He picks up a chapter, and the chapter may be diverse or not, and he will go on to explain you the chapter in manner so that it goes on to become very easy. It goes on to become very graspable to you. A mentor is something that will go on to chisel you. He will go on to reform you. He will go on to point out mistakes in you. He will go on to equip you with more questions than he goes on to answer those questions. He will go on to help you have a much better degree of a self-understanding, and he understands your flaws much better than anyone else. Of course, there is a fashion that good number of people will go on to call themselves as so-called mentors, and so on, so forth. And that is going to be a case associated with it. And when we are going to be talking about the so-called mentors, even if they are 30, 32 years old, they will go to call themselves mentor, whether they are not even fit enough for a coach as well. They are not going to be fit enough to do anything. But then that's the type of a perception. We're going to find a good number of youngsters who are worth nothing, and they have started calling themselves as mentor, which requires a very high degree of an observation sense to know the flaws of a candidate and to tackle it, to check it, and also to correct it as well. That is a part of it. That is how exactly that we are approaching. We are going to be approaching this entire of the section from a perspective of both a teacher as well as a mentor. And that is how we'll go on to move. Now, when we have talked about it, we must go on to understand the problems that generally the students go on to encounter while preparing for their civil services mains geography examination. One of the problems that they're going to be encountering is that the syllabus is largely undefined. And when we say that the syllabus is undefined, basically it goes on to mean that in this case, the whole of the topic, even if it is, let's say, given geology, then the students do not understand what is meant by geology. If it is about physiography, the students don't going to know what exactly is going to be the content inside physiography. And even if it is going to be, let's say, climate, vegetation or anything, they don't have any idea whatsoever what exactly is going to be the content. And being innocent, being a bit gullible as well, and being also malleable, these students require to be nourished, they require to be chiseled in a very, very fine manner, because anything wrong in the beginning, that can go to spell something like a doom to their entire of the preparation. And that is what we are going to mostly concerned with. We'll go on to pick up the topic by thinking about in a variety of ways. For example, we are going to be talking about the whole of geography. We are talking about Indian geography, world geography. We are also going to be talking about topics like environment and disaster management. And each one of them, in this case, we are going to be talking about each one of them. We will go on to pick up that case. For example, if it is going to be about geology, what we're going to do is that how is it that the questions can possibly be asked in geology, in world geography? What can be the nature of the questions that can be in Indian geography? How is it that they can be correlated in disaster management? And how is it that that is going to be also in environment? So wherever it is going to be fit enough for that purpose, we'll go on to pick up that section and that aspect. Now, beginning with the whole of it, physical geography of not only the world, it is going to be with respect to India as well. You don't going to go only by this word, that is world. We are going to be picking up world, India, disaster management and ecology, all of them in a combined manner. Now, the expectation with respect to geology with you is going to be, that is the examiner will go on to understand, and of course the UPSC will go on to expect that you will be able to answer any geodynamic activity out of it from the world as well as from India. For example, one of these questions that was asked some time back, that was on mantle plume. Now, that was geodynamic. So, if it is that a question has been asked on geodynamic activities in world geography, in a similar manner with respect to India, you will be asked about the origin of the Himalayas. The origin of the Tibetan plateau, and why is it that the Tibetan plateaus are going to be so thick? That is going to be another one component. Maybe that you can go to find some of these type of correlationships in the form of how is it that geology goes on to determine the imprint of a mineral resource base. That is going to be the third way in which the question can possibly be asked. Now, if it is going to be about, let's say, disaster management, then the question is going to be hinging around how is it that earthquake can go to be disaster. Now, earthquake, tsunami, volcanic activity, plate tectonics, mantle plume, all of them is going to be part of all of them happen to be part of geology, and they can be asked with in geology, they can be correlated with disaster management as well. For example, the component associated with geology is going to be concerned with the cause of earthquake. For example, there can be a specific cause of earthquake in Gujarat if an earthquake goes on to hit Gujarat. There can be a specific cause of an earthquake in the ocean areas. For example, just some time back there had been an earthquake in Haiti, and if it is that this earthquake would have been very, very, very powerful of sorts to an extent that would have led to the generation of a tsunami, and it would have caused a good amount of rampage and loss of life and property, then that is another topic that could have been asked in general from the people also. So, and how is it that earthquakes can be managed? What exactly are the mitigation techniques that goes on to be correlated with disaster management? Nothing associated with ecology of sorts. That's number one. With respect to India, the question can go on to be associated with how is it that geology can be geology? That means earthquakes, earthquake zones of India, volcanoes. Why is it that volcanoes in India are in a dormant position? Why is it that a plate tectonics that goes on to take place, that is lifting the whole of the Tibetan region in a certain speed, and so on and so forth? That is one. Coming to physiography, with respect to the whole of the world, the topic on physiography can go on to be around a physiography of the whole of South America, physiography of the entire of Russia, physiography of North America, physiography of Europe, physiography of Australia, and so on. Now, the question will not going to be straightforward in this case, even if it is that the question in physiography is going to be asked there. This question is going to be associated with certain things like that of the imprint of physiography on components like that of a settlement, on economy, on agriculture, on industry, and so on and so forth. It is going to be associated with it. That is the nature of physiography. It's not going to be complete. So in India as well, it can go to be, they can go to ask you about the coastal regions and physiography of the Western Ghats, and how is it that Western Ghats physiography has been significant and instrumental in determining the nature of the coastal plains also. That is part of it. Then you can go to pick up a third question associated with it. That is, how is it that the physiography of northeastern India has determined the nature of the passes in this place? Not too many questions associated with physiography. A correlationship can go on to be associated with disaster management in the form of it is physiography that is going to be the main culprit for the landslides in the Himalayan region. Analyze, will not be discussed. It can always be analyzed because that is not the only reason. That is not the only factor behind it. So, geology, physiography going to be one. Drainage is going to be the second topic here. And with respect to drainage, the question that can be asked in world geography can be associated with the drainage of the whole of the Tibetan Plateau region or the Tibetan region, and the correlationship of this drainage with river origin, with something like a river regime, with something like a hydrological mapping, with a lot of other aspects as well. And maybe that one correlationship can go into between international relations, the role of drainage conditions in determining the geopolitics of the Tibetan Plateau region. And that is what we are going to be talking about. The drainage in relation to geopolitical powers of thoughts in this case. That is going to be drainage. That's another part associated with it. And then you can go on to get it correlated with Indian geography as well. That is the drainage patterns of a Kathiawar Peninsula, drainage pattern of the Gangetic Plain. How is it that the dendritic drainage patterns go on to evolve, and what are its basic characteristic features? There can be a third way in which it can be asked and correlated to maybe disaster management, drainage with respect to floods, or maybe that can go on to be correlated with ecology, that is drainage in relation to the interlinking of the rivers. So that is going to be the third component, drainage. With respect to climate, the greatest diversity of questions that can be asked is going to be associated with climate. And what can be the type of a question that can be actually framed from climate is one of these questions is going to be associated with the role of a different type of mechanism of climate. And when we are going to be talking about different type of mechanism of climate, we are essentially talking about several aspects of a climate, like that of insolation, that of temperature, that of jet streams. Now this time jet streams have played a good amount of a role, something like a truant in confining a warm air and leading ultimately to the formation of the heat dome. That is going to be one component. So climate can go on to be associated with a very contemporary topic like heat dome, like jet streams, like confinement of the warm air that is taking place in Siberia, and consequently the Arctic fires in the northern region, northern regime as well, heat dome as well that took place in Vancouver and other places. So climate had been a part of it. Now, other than this segment, there can be a good number of topics which are going to be both conventional in nature as well as a contemporary nature. For example, a conventional nature of the topic can go on to be correlated to something like Arctic vortex or Antarctic vortex and its role in distributing the conditions here or there. That is going to be climate. And then you can go on to pick up the role of climate in India as well. It can go on to be something like why is it that Cherrapunji goes on to have such a high amount of rainfall? That is going to be one factor. Or the second can be that give an account of the changing patterns of rainfall in India, and what are the factors that are going to be responsible for this changing pattern of rainfall in the country. And climate can be correlated to disaster management. For example, of late there has been an experience of a very high amount of rainfall in a very short period of time, and this has led to floods. And how is it that the floods have altered the disaster management mitigation plans, disaster management techniques, the disaster management paradigms, all in all? Now, associated with ecology, it can be going to be correlated to something like climatic change. That is, of late it has been experienced that it is global warming that has been largely responsible for bringing about a variety of type of changes that are being experienced in the climate. Substantiate your answer with relevant information, points and concepts. That is how exactly it can be correlated to all the three sections. Now, the fifth is going to be ocean dynamics. Now, ocean dynamics is going to be generally in world geography. It's not going to be generally associated with the Indian geography. And one of these forms of ocean dynamics can go on to be completely correlated to, that is AMOC. AMOC is Atlantic Meridional Ocean Circulation. That is what we are going to be talking about, North Atlantic circulation and the changes taking place in a North Atlantic circulation. And how is it that the North Atlantic circulation collapse? That means there has been a report that North Atlantic circulation is going to be collapsing, and a collapse of the North Atlantic circulation will going to pave way for a lot of things, a lot of new areas, a lot of new concepts and whatnot. It will go on to lead to the complete transformation of the climate of Europe, climate of North America. It may go on to usher in an ice age as well in this case. So that is associated with ocean dynamics. Now, maybe that one of these questions can go on to be correlated with India as well. That is Arabian Sea temperature, the cause of the rise of the Arabian Sea temperature consequent upon El Nino and La Nina, and the role it goes on to play in the global circulation aspects. That is going to be ocean dynamics. Not so much with respect to disaster management or with respect to ecology, although maybe that is marine resources can go to be part of it, but it's not part of ocean dynamics. That is going to be part of resource section. From soil, the questions can go on to be simple from both Indian geography as well as world geography. In world geography, the co-relationship between soil characteristics and the fertility of the soil. That is one. In Indian geography, it can go on to be the same thing by taking examples. Maybe that some of these questions are going to be asked correlated to the dynamics of the soil, correlated to the conservation of dynamics of the soil, all in all. And how is it that some of these type of techniques are going to be significant or useful in one type of a soil and not in another type of a soil? Now, this is something that can be that is going to be evident, that is going to be there, that is going to be manifested, and so on, so forth. That is a part of it. That is soil, and the topic is going to be associated with it. And not too much with ecology, except for the fact that is the soils in Punjab region and maybe Haryana region are undergoing a constant decline. Now, why is it that they are going to be undergoing a constant decline? That goes on to become a moot point. That goes on to become a good question to be answered and to be asked as well in this case. And that is the way that we are going to be approaching it. Now, moving further, that was section number 1. There is a section number 2 that is going to be geophysical and natural phenomena. Now, most of these geophysical and natural phenomena, in this case, the one that have been mentioned here is going to be part of world geography rather than with Indian geography. Meteoritic impact is not going to be part of Indian geography, neither asteroidal impact nor magnetic reversal or aurora lightning can go into be part of it, and also not Arctic vortex blizzards as well. So, these questions are going to be by and large straightforward. That means, what is and why is it that they can be asked? They can be asked, for example, this time they can be asked because there was a question that was associated with asteroidal impact because one of the Japanese space machines landed on one of these asteroids, and the name of it was Zoho, Xoho. It's pronounced as Zoho, all in all. So asteroid mining is going to be one of them. Meteorite mining is going to be another example of it. And of course, geophysical examples like that of magnetic reversals. For example, there had been a solar storm, and this solar storm would have led to magnetic reversals, and that is a part of it. That's a component associated with it. And of course, one of these geophysical components going to be associated with aurora. Aurora is also a part of it. Lightning is a part of it, and so on, so forth. All of these questions that are going to be asked is going to be of a very straightforward type, pretty scientific in nature, and maybe associated with blizzards only, that you can go on to talk about. You can go on to correlate it with disaster management, because what is the cause of blizzards in North America, and how is it that the blizzards have been managed in North America, and what are the mitigation techniques, how is it that they can be prevented. Some of these type of questions can possibly be asked associated with blizzards in this case. And that is the second section associated with geography, and of course geography in world geography, Indian geography. The third is ecology, and the fourth is disaster management. Coming to the next component associated with it, that is going to be very, very contemporary in nature, real contemporary section, and that is world's resources. Now, all of these topics can go on to be asked associated with world geography, Indian geography, and ecology. Not so much with disaster management as with all the three sections. We're going to pick up some examples associated with the water resources, mineral resources, energy, biotic, and marine resources, all of them. Now, understand that part. When we are going to be picking up this section, you will understand a lot of components associated with it. For example, when we are going to be talking about water resources, then the question that can possibly be asked with respect to water resource is in world geography can go on to be overall distribution of the water resources. Maybe it can be associated with the Hamza River in Brazil, that is a river that runs beneath the Amazon River, and that is in South America. So the origin of the Hamza River, the significance of the Hamza River, the water resources associated with the Hamza River, and so on, so forth. Maybe they can go to ask you about the nature of the aquifers and the nature of the aquifers. The world's largest aquifer is the Obalala aquifer, that is going to be in the Mississippi regions, in the Mississippi plains, and in the whole of a Mississippi Valley. Now, that is going to be one part associated with it. That is going to be simple. In world geography, not too many complicated questions can be framed out of water resources. But in India, it can be. And in India, it can be something like the solutions sought for managing water resources in India have created more problems than they have actually solved. Now, analyze this issue. Now, this is going to be asking about that is all the measures that we have used with respect to managing our water resources, like the use of the dams, the reservoirs, water diversion projects, desalination plants, and whatnot. All of them have been to an extent they have all contributed to some problems in one way or the other. This is what exactly has happened. Now, this is something that is to be analyzed. Maybe that they will go to analyze it, examine the problem associated with the water resources of India, and explain to what extent the interlinking of the rivers can go on to solve the problem. That is going to be another topic associated with it. Water resources. Maybe going to be a third part. That is the overuse of water resources in India has created more problems, and it has contaminated the water resources of India beyond its known capacity and carrying capacity. Explain it by giving examples. That goes on to another part associated with it on water resources. So that is going to be part of ecology. And of course, in this case, the contemporary nature, that is the current affairs topic here, the conventional topic here, the ecological aspect, the analytical component of it, all of them will go on to be taking shape all of one time. That's going to be the same with respect to mineral resources. On a world scale, the topic of mineral resources will go on to be associated with some of these things like overall, throughout the whole of the world, mineral resources mining has led to a variety of type of problems, including the formation of a derelict land. Examine the different type of paradigms that are existing with respect to mineral resources in the whole of the world, and how is it that you can go on to consider that these are the type of resources which can be important for the purpose of managing resources in a sustainable basis. This is how exactly the topic can be understood and that the topic can be thought of as well. In India, this topic can be correlated with the geology. That is, geology has a greater amount of an imprint on the determination of the mineral resources in the world. Explain it by giving examples. That is going to be mineral resources. That's going to be the second component associated with it. That's another part. Now, the third part in this case is going to be associated with some of these things correlated to energy. And energy can go on to be, again, it can, energy and mineral resources, both of them can be correlated and understand it, how it can be. That is a new form of energy resources happens to be something like acid with hydrogen. It's still a new form can go on to be with the tokamak reactor, nuclear fusion. And almost every day, a new form of energy keeps on coming because we have started living in an energy-intensive society, and that is where it goes on to become very, very, very significant. So, talking about energy resources, the first question in this case is that is, what have been the reasons for the decline of the conventional energy resources, and to what extent the unconventional energy resources going to fulfill that part. Now, that is going to be one topic associated with energy resources. Now, maybe that the second question can go on to be coal mining in India has led to a variety of type of ecological problems, and how is it that these problems can be mitigated? Explain it by enunciating a small policy measure. Maybe a third topic, that is a larger use of hydropower is a recipe for disaster. Explain it by giving examples of dam failures in India and to what extent they are going to be detrimental to a sustainable form of a development. Now, that can be energy resources. The fourth is going to be associated with the biotic resources. Now, biotic resources are going to be associated with resources such as all of those type of biodiversity. Now, this biodiversity can go on to be correlated with plant biodiversity, animal biodiversity, wildlife resources, anything that the whole of the world goes on to be comprising of in this case. That is going to be a part of it. And when we are going to be talking about biodiversity, then it merges with the topic of ecology. In ecology, you have a complete topic on biodiversity, and so it goes on to merge with it imperceptibly that way. Biotic resources are a part of it, are a component of it. And when we are going to be talking about biodiversity as a part of it, then it means certain things. And what exactly does it go on to mean? Now, it means some things like the significance of biodiversity, the new biodiversity resources, and its impact on the emerging ecological systems, biodiversity and its utilization for maybe COVID as well, biodiversity and to what extent it can be instrumental in managing some of these type of resources as well. Now, these questions can be on a global scale as well as on a national scale. That means with respect to India as well. And maybe that you can go to say that is the loss of the biodiversity is going to be spelling a death knell for the human beings. Explain it by giving examples. This is another topic and an appendage of this topic that can be associated with it. The fifth, that is marine resources, it goes on to be having again components associated with geography, world geography, Indian geography, as well as with ecology. Not so much once again with disaster management, but then one or two disasters we are so accomplished that we can go to create a disaster out of nothing, and that is the basic characteristic of human beings. And now even more particularly after having known that whatever that the United States has done to Taliban and the rise of Taliban, then this type of disaster can be made by anyone in the whole of the world. Some of the people are accustomed and accomplished to do it as well. So let's pick up that part. Now, in marine resources, the one question that can come to possibly framed is going to be associated with the nature of the marine resources, and it is the final frontier. How is it that the marine resources are going to be the final frontier of mankind? Maybe in India, it can go to be quoted with deep sea mission of India, and to what extent it will go on to aid in the development of the marine resources. The third topic can go on to be associated with the marine resources in relation to some of the topics like that of how is it that marine resources have been responsible for stirring particular marine resources like mineral resources have been responsible for stirring the ocean floor when polymetallic nodules are going to be mined. So the mining of the polymetallic nodules leads to the stirring of the entire of the ocean sediments in that region, and as they are going to be stirred, that goes on to block, that goes on to make the organisms opaque in that region, that goes on to reduces the biodiversity in that place and what not in that place. That is going to be about marine resources in this place. Now that is section number C, world resources. You have this topic here, and we are going to be talking about both of them. With respect to Indian geography, you can always go on to understand that the question that can be asked is one can be on marine biodiversity resources, marine energy resources, marine mineral resources, marine water resources. All of these topics are going to be likely to be asked in the form of such type of a resource. Then as you can go on to pick up some other topics like that of the second part, that is sections of economy. And when we are going to be talking about sections of economy, we are going to be talking about primary sector, secondary sector, and the tertiary sector, three of them. Now, primary sector goes on to comprise of agriculture. Secondary sector goes on to be comprising of general industry. Tertiary sector will go on to comprise of services. And of course, when the topic is going to be about sections of economy, there can be a fourth and fifth sector as well. But then that it is unlikely to be asked in geography, in world geography or Indian geography. We are talking about quaternary sector and the quinary sector. And why is it that we are going to be talking about quaternary and quinary sector that way? It's largely because quaternary sector is all about providing very high quality services. For example, if you happen to be listening to this lecture, so many people are involved in it. It's a part of a very niche type of a lecture, a niche type of a speech that requires so much amount of maybe knowledge, assimilation of knowledge, and so on and so forth. And that is quaternary sector. And quinary sector is going to be executive decision making. That is, it's associated with wisdom. That is, maybe one sentence to you can go on to change the complexion of the entire of the game. Now understand the questions. Primary sector comprising of mining and agriculture. We are talking about agriculture, world agriculture. For example, one of the questions that can be asked is, how is it that the pattern of agriculture in the prairie regions of United States have gone on to see a change, and to what extent you see further changes coming up in that region? That is going to be associated with the primary sector of the economy in this case. We are going to be talking about some of the questions that can be possibly asked with respect to Indian geography, having talked about primary sector. In India, it can go on to be associated with the role of irrigation, the role of seeds, the role of green revolution. For example, you can be asked about right now, that is, green revolution has harmed the country much more than it has actually benefited. And it is in this context, examine the statement, better ecology is better economics. Now, that is comprising of Indian geography, that is comprising of ecology as well. Maybe a second topic, that is the introduction of the high quality seeds and high yielding varieties of seeds has created many more problems, and what it has done is that this type of a seed has reduced the biodiversity in the whole of the world, particularly in India, and that has made India vulnerable to a lot of attack by the pests and other things. Examine this, giving examples, and enunciate certain aspects for the future policy of future betterment of the policy in the country. That is going to be primary sector. There can be another topic associated with this type of a primary sector, and that can be Maybe it can be related to horticulture, maybe related to agriculture. And mind it, with respect to India, agriculture is a real hot topic, largely because if there are going to be 3 or 4 sectors that show a sign of increasing, one of them is going to be agriculture. Agriculture is the in carrier for the coming world. And the impact and implications of some of these type of agricultural policies for the people of India is going to be a part of it. And the ecological impact of it, for example, the ecological impact of irrigation, maybe the water harvesting techniques associated with different regions of India, that will going to become a topic of ecology as well as that of resource as well as that of agriculture, all 3 of them. Maybe that one can going to be asked about the role of dryland farming, the technology of dryland farming, the suggestions that can be given for the purpose of augmenting dryland farming, that will going to become a part of primary sector. Associated with secondary sector can go into be industries. For example, sometime back you had a question that was on industrial corridor. Like there was a question in primary sector that was on agroclimatic zonation. In secondary sector, it can go into be it can be associated with industrial corridors. And when we are going to be talking about industrial corridors, then the variety of type of industrial corridors that have developed, they are going to be pretty significant from many angles. For example, why is it that the industrial corridors go to develop in the whole of the world? In the world setting, the question can go on to be evolution of an industrial zone. For example, how is it that an industrial zone has an industrial zone like that of New England has evolved? That is going to be one topic. There can be a second topic here, that is discuss the rise of the rural Westphalia region as an industrial cluster and examine the factors that may have related to the decline of this type of industrial cluster in Europe. That is going to be another component associated with it, that is associated with the secondary sector. There can be a third topic associated with a secondary sector, and that topic can go into with transportation. For example, in the COVID period, the airline transportation has actually nosedived in terms of its growth. It has plummeted. It has got itself completely devastated. So, the role of wide-bodied jets in this case, the role of aviation hubs in this case, or the role of a spoke and hub pattern in the evolution of aviation industry, or the problems of aviation industry in the country, and how is it that the aviation sector can go on to lead to its growth, that is a part of a secondary sector. And of course, there is going to be component associated with it, primary, secondary and tertiary, all 3 of them combined in this case. That is the section of economy. So all of these sectors are going to be significant. Tertiary is going to be even more significant right now, largely because that is going to be in topic. That is one of those type of topics which is always going to be news and always getting itself circulated in one or the other manner. And when we are going to be talking about all of these aspects, we do go on to pick up a variety of type of sections in this case. The other section is going to be section E, that is geographical features and their location. And there are going to be 2 different type of geographical features and their location. One of these geographical feature in this case is going to be the natural geographical feature, and the second is going to be artificial geographical feature. A natural geographical feature will go on to be comprising of sections like that of some water bodies, rivers, maybe certain type of topographic features that you're going to find in desert regions, maybe some of these type of mountains which going to be changing. So our concern in world geography will be the changing nature of the natural geography. Our concern in cultural geography will be, cultural geography will going to be, or artificial geography will going to be something like rural settlements, something like urban settlements, something like an urban sprawl, something like a gated community, something like that of air pollution in the urban areas, something like an urban sprawl, something like that of the decline of the CBD, something like that of rapid mass transit railway transportation, and so on and so forth. Now we are talking about all of these components that is part of the cultural geography of the world, cultural geography of India. Maybe that you can going to be asked a question, and that question is going to be correlated to how is it that the decline in the CBD in India has contributed to the development of an urban sprawl? Now, most of these questions you are going to be asked is going to be from India and not exactly from the world, because the in world geography, the questions will going to become very, very specialized. But in Indian geography, the questions will not going to be so specialized that they are going to be. And in that process, that is, the development of an urban sprawl will go on to lead to good development of an ecosystem, beautification of the countryside, and ecological restoration of the countryside as well, while lowering the pollution levels. Do you agree? That is part of it. Maybe that you are going to be asked a question, green belt, that is, give arguments in favor and against of the evolution of the green belts in the whole of the world, or maybe in India as well. That is, why is it that the green belts need to be picked up, and why is it that they are not going to be required to be picked up at all? Now, these topics can go on to be partly correlated to the ecological aspect, but in natural geography, there is going to be a good number of a component which can be associated with its part in natural geography. And why is it we going to say it so? We say it so largely because of two reasons. That is, natural geography will going to mean water bodies, maybe deserts, maybe landscapes, maybe different type of landforms, and so on and so forth. That is a part of it, which is a component of it associated with it, and that is how exactly that we are going to be taking it forward. Now, coming to another component, that is the last component, changing world geography, or the changing nature of the geography of the whole of the world. We are going to be talking about several aspects associated with it. That will going to include ice cap, water bodies, of course the changes in the flora, changes in fauna. Now, while floral changes and faunal changes are going to be associated more with ecology than anything else, the other sections like ice caps, ice cap will going to include ice cap of Antarctic, ice cap of Greenland, ice cap of Arctic region, maybe certain type of changes that are taking place in the glacial bodies, the melting of the glaciers, snapping of the glaciers, the glacial lake outburst flood. Now, glacial lake outburst flood will go on to become part of disaster management. And of course, that is going to be in India. For example, one of the topics that can be possibly asked is going to be correlated with the glacial problems that India is facing and its co-relationship with any type of a change that is going to be taking place. There is going to be ice cap and it's associated with it. And when we are going to be talking about ice cap, it can be on a global scale and Indian scale, both of them connected with ecology. So ice cap is topic of world geography, Indian geography, as well as ecology, because the melting of the ice cap will go on to bring about a lot of change in the climatic condition. For example, in world geography, a somewhat complex topic can be the melting of ice will go on to lead to a change in the MUC, that is Atlantic Meridional Ocean Circulation. Analyze the changes associated with it in the domino effect of it. This is going to be one question, ice cap. There can be another question associated with it. That is, ice caps are significant for overall climatic regulation of the earth, like the one that was asked, cryosphere, that was an ice cap. Water bodies is going to be lakes and rivers, so it can be correlated with shrinking of the Aral Sea. It can be correlated with certain things like that of why is it that Lake Balkhash is dying, or why is it that Lake Tonle Sap in Cambodia is changing its shape and form, or why is it that the Mackenzie Delta glaciers are receding and the ice caps are cracking in that region. So there can be a variety of type of topics. In India, it can go to be associated with Pangong, so maybe it can be associated with Manipur Lake, Loktak Lake, maybe with Kolleru Lake, maybe with some of these lakes like Kabar Lake, the drying of the lake, and the role of the water bodies and something like wetlands as well associated with it. So it can again be correlated with world geography, Indian geography, and ecology. When it comes to wetland, it is going to be part of ecology as much as anything else in this case. Floral changes and faunal changes are part of ecology as well as geography, both of them. There is the changes that have taken place in the flora in the whole of the world. For example, it can be correlated with biodiversity, it can be correlated with Amazonian forest, deforestation in Amazonian forest, forest fire in Amazonian forest, it can be Arctic fire, it can be some of these accounts associated with forest fires and so on and so forth. Well, final changes can go on to be, for example, in India, one of these topics can be reintroduction of the cheetah. That is one. With respect to fungal changes, there can be one of these topics associated with and connected with some components which are part of some type of a fungal changes taking place in some of the regions, like in Kaziranga National Park, something like Project Tiger, and why is it that it has been successful and to what extent it has not been. Maybe some of these things associated with the migration of the birds and migration of the animals as well, if the topic happens to be in news. That can be correlated to fungal changes. And these fungal changes can go on to be pretty significant from both these angles. It may not be associated with disaster management as much as it is going to be associated with other components associated with it. Now, having talked about all of these components, there is the limit as to how much is it that we could have talked about. We have given you enough examples so that you can go on to deeply analyze the topics and you can go on to deeply analyze the content and the breakage of the content, the overall nature of the content in this case. That will going to help you. That is going to be for the mains examination. So mains examination is not going to be only one topic. It's not going to be world geography or it's not going to be Indian geography. It's going to be world, Indian geography, disaster management and ecology, all four of them combined. And that's the way it has to be picked up. Coming to the last component associated with it, that is the source of it. Now, when you go on to pick up the syllabi of the whole of world geography, the whole of Indian geography, that is undefined, nowhere is it that you are going to be finding it. And because you won't be able to find it, of course, it doesn't mean that you can't study it. You will go on to find that people will go on to refer to you some of these things like NCERT, like Go Cheng Yong, and you cannot go on to find even one single topic. But you will be surprised why is it that these books are referred to you. They are referred because the person concerned who is maybe teaching you, he doesn't know more than that at all. And that is why they are going to refer to you. If they are going to refer to something more than that and you study it, you start knowing much more than that of those so-called young teachers who are worth nothing but maybe your buddies only, not even your friends also. But then because some of these are able to market it and you're going to be having a peer identification, that's the reason you are better able to correlate yourself with those so-called youngsters and those brash youngsters who can speak in all this type of a language except a correct English or a correct Hindi even in one sentence. Now, that is what exactly this world is. You will also understand that in internet, students are so habituated to low quality of a content, such an abysmal quality of content, that a good quality of content is something that they resist it. But then only some people who are able to understand it and go through it, they are the one who will go on to go ahead as well. So, having talked about that, we can go on to take it forward. In order to do it, what you are going to be getting is that you will go on to get in this place, on this platform, what you are going to be getting is you are going to get the chapter, a completely revised chapter comprising of all of them. For world geography separately, Indian geography separately. Second is the summary of the chapter. The third will be the video in the documentary form, recorded form as well. The third is going to be the MCQ wherever required, or maybe the questions and answer wherever required for the mains examination. That is going to be another topic. The sixth is going to be some of these enrichment contents associated with it. For example, any new development associated with water body, any new development associated with ice cap, or so on and so forth. The eighth is some extra aspects which may be in the form of some type of an interview or so on and so forth. Now, these are all the components that you are likely to get associated with the topic here. And that is how we are going to take it forward as well. This is what is a geography for civil services mains examination. Now, so far we haven't talked about anything about the prelims examination at all. Prelims examination is a different ball game altogether, and we will have to wait till another announcement. How is it that the prelims preparation can actually be done with respect to geography? Now, having talked about that, we can only go on to hope that you are finding yourself in a better position. The best thing right now will be to follow it the way you have to follow it. That means How is it that you can go to follow it? You have to follow it by thinking that you are a learner, and as long you will be a learner, you will always be successful, and that is what we're going to think of. We're going to wish that you become a learner, you become very, very curious, you become value loaded, so that success is not going to be too difficult for you. All the best.
To have more such discussions and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our upcoming videos.